So what does this positive earnings news mean for the future of Samsung? Max Wolff, chief economist at Manhattan Venture Partners, joins me now to discuss that. Welcome.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Now, as we heard, you have Samsung Galaxy's Note 7s catching fire, some of its washing machines recalled, political scandal, yet Samsung manages to have its best quarter in 3 years. What's happening here?
Yeah, so look, Samsung is a global macro story much more than it's a Samsung story. And what we're seeing here is that the consumer electronics space continues to do well, in part because of replacements in the developing world and new clients buying either new products or products that are up the product chain of quality. And that means Samsung products, because Samsung products are either in every kind of possible division, whether that's washing machines, televisions, refrigerators, but they're also Samsung products. Those chips are inside a whole lot of companies' goods, whether the outside says Samsung or not.
Now, a lot of focus did go towards the Galaxy Note 7, being how sensational it was with the findings. Now, they're actually saying that it was the battery and the construction of the battery that really led to this problem. So how far does this admission go towards alleviating concerns about Samsung's future products and phones?
Well, look, I think we know there's a battle here, principally between Samsung and Apple for these large form factor, super high-end phones, the Galaxy and the Apple line or the iPhone line being the two sort of predominant global high-end phones. And there's this huge kind of war, and Apple has been more or less ahead continuously in terms of battery life, and that's been an issue for Samsung. It's pulled ahead in some other areas. And so it seems like they got awfully aggressive in trying to reduce the space, to have the smallest, thinnest phone, make sure that battery charged really fast, made sure it was small. They did that in a way that made it less efficient at dispensing its own heat, which built up to the flashpoint here, and that's where we got the fires that so dogged the brand, and it caused the two sort of bad recalls. And I think true as always in these cases, the botched recall was probably worse than the initial product failure.
So with that being said then, which areas of its business do you think Samsung will really focus on over the next year?
So I think we're going to stay focused on the mobile phones just because it's the premier brand, and it's basically the way the developing world is onboarding itself to high-end electronics. The first high-end electronics that a lot of people around the world are going to buy is going to be that full-feature smartphone, and Samsung needs to be dominant there. Samsung also does a lot of business in the low end of the phone business, which people don't think about, but is hugely important for them. And they're really teaching people Samsung means electronics, and that's true in sub-Saharan Africa, where you get your first feature phone or your first smartphone, and it's true all over Asia, all over Latin America, really all over the world. So I think they're going to push out those chips, but I think they're going to stay pretty focused on that mobile unit.
And Max, how much do we know about Samsung's plans for the Asia-Pacific region?
Yeah, so we know that that's obviously most of the world's growth in this area, that they've stayed focused. They will stay focused there. What's made Korean conglomerates as successful as they are is they're very good at focusing outside of home. So they first started focusing on Japan, then the United States. Now they focus on the world, principally the Chinese market, particularly when it comes to mobile devices. The Chinese market is the all-important testing ground because it's the largest market and the most dynamic.
Now, as you mentioned, while Samsung is known for its smartphones, the company's interests are much, much wider. So how would you describe the current state of the company's overall business outside of smartphones?
So, I mean, smartphones are still disproportionately large. They're so large that they're macroeconomically important to the nation, right, of South Korea. But that notwithstanding, look, the chip business is huge. The memory chips and integrated circuits with a Qualcomm deal, they're in an awful lot of phones, including, as we said before, phones that don't say Samsung on the outside. Chips are huge for them. And so are all these, what they call white goods or consumer durables. As large portions of the formerly impoverished developing world become more or less affluent, they get their first consumer goods, and Samsung is having an opportunity to be there and be that first microwave oven, that first television, that first washing machine, and really sear itself into the consciousness of the emerging global middle class. They're going to stay focused on that because that's the best long-term business opportunity imaginable in the world today.
Now, one thing that always draws a lot of focus is the Mobile World Congress, and we know that Samsung usually attends that event to really unveil some of its flagship products. What do we know about their plans for this year's event?
So the Mobile World Congress is a great event. Everybody's there. However, it's hard to really steal the show because there's so much going on. And I think we've started to see a bunch of brands experiment with releasing or doing big stories a little before, a little after, so they don't get overwhelmed by all the activity at Mobile World. But Samsung will certainly be there. They'll certainly be prominent. It'll certainly be important. And I guess probably not so desirable for them, but a lot of the spec of their new 8 series line, the Galaxy S8, which everyone's excited about, was leaked today through The Guardian. And so an awful lot of the specs are out. out. It looks like they're really going to, again, push the envelope, but they're not going to let the problems with the Note 7 slow down their innovation pressure against Apple, HTC, and some of the other major players in the handset business.
Well, hopefully there'll be fireworks of the good kind at that Congress. Thank you so much, Max Wolff, Chief Economist at Manhattan Venture Partners.